Largest and most luxurious ever. Not so fast as Cunard's Lusitania, half as big again, and more to the liking of the upper crust. 3, I think they said.
Beats me where they find this sort of money from.
Such great affairs.
Always that way when Mr. Ismay dines with his lordship.
I should think so. His lordship and Mr. Ismay are eminent men. Harland Wolf is the world's greatest shipbuilder, and the White Star Line is the jewel of the Atlantic services. Britannia rules the waves.
I hear Cunard is faster now.
It's not a matter of speed, James. Not for Mr. Ismay's passengers.
Gentry always don't appear to have time on their hands.
I will have none of that talk here.
Sorry, Mr. Harrison, I'm a fair one out. What's so special about Mr. Ismay's ships, then?
Luxury, James. That's the mark of the White Star Line. Luxury and elegance. And the better sort expected, Mr. Ismay provides it. Mr. Ismay has the backing of the distinguished American financier, John Pierpont, through his shipping firm, the International Mercantile Marine Company. But I thought he built British ships. They fly the British flag, James, and they shall be ships built with American money. Whatever's the world coming to, it's not for us to be one wonder, James. Don't suppose either of us have ever been privileged to travel with such magnificence.
Beats me where they find this sort of money from.
That's the clever part, James. Mr. Ismay has the backing of the distinguished American financier, John Pierpont Morgan, through his shipping firm, the International. That's the mark of the White Star Line. Luxury and elegance. The better sort expected. It is made with weight, and that's all they're going to build and bigger still. What did you get at, James? Service. Proposing a new generation. But I thought British ships, they fly the British flag, James, and they shall be constructed in a fine shipyard by our most skilled.
urgent for the size of the place. They put me to work on 401. That's what we called her. We knew she'd be the largest passenger ship in the world, but we didn't call her Titanic then. I was there from the beginning. I watched the shipwrights lay the keel blocks. They set big wooden blocks on the slipway to start with, then the keel atop of that, like a backbone, and the frames attached to that, like a skeleton. Workshops everywhere. It took weeks to find your way around. There'd be workshops for every trade you ever heard of. Painters, sailmakers, coppersmiths, boiler makers, cabinet makers. I even learned a bit about French polishing off them. Harland Wolf is a fine place to work, but dangerous. Every ship costs a life, and there'll be lots of injuries besides. I was in the engine works for a while. Very well equipped it was. That's where we built the triple expansion engines. 2 of them, each as high as a 3-story house. I worked in the frame bending shop. You'd heat steel beams in the furnace, then hook them onto slabs of cast iron and hammer them curved. It was skilled work. You had to bend them more than you needed because the frame straightened out a little when it cooled. The shell plates that made up the hull weighed up to 4.5 tons. They were taller than a da. The plates were overlapped on the edges. Some were raised, one after another. We called it clincher. One of the foremen told me years ago, that's how you built steel ships. I worked as a heater boy. You had to heat the rivets on a wee plate. You pumped the bellows till the rivet was white hot, then you get a hold of it with your tongs and throw it up to the catcher, and he put it in the hole in the plate with the holder up. There were 2 of us on the other side of the plate with the holder up. We had to hammer the rivet so it filled the hole before it turned dull red. The double bottom. That's a wee space we called the tanks, made up of steel plates. The rest of the rivet squad all had to fit into that gap. One of the foremen would check each rivet with a special hammer. If it made a ringing sound, we'd have to go back, chase it out after work. I'd get scared working down in that double bottom. You only had candles for light, and the constant hammering against the shell plates. You could hear it all over Belfast. Some of those boys ended up stone deaf, so they did. We were paid 31 bob a week. The heater boy and catcher got 16 bob, but we all worked the same 54 hours. The upper deck was steel too, and part of the strength of the ship. There's no straight lines in a ship, and when you look down the weather deck, you can see the shear of the hull, which stopped her reflection at sea. The stern frame had to be strong enough to take the rudder and turning in heavy seas. You'd have all these timbers and guy wires to steady the frame, and men scurrying around like ants underneath. When we came to launch day, I was torn between pride and fear. The standing ways were coated in tallow, train oil and soft soap, so the ship would slide when they shifted her weight off the blocks. That was the most dangerous part, when the shipwrights were knocking away the last props. They were under compression, you see, and the sliding ways would be released by the hydraulic trigger. 100,000 people watched the launch. Some paid a bob to sit in the reserved seating. There were extra trams laid on. Then we all went off to the pub to wish her well. Doc, you were proud to be an island man that day. And Titanic was the pride of Belfast.
Briefing step by step up that stairway.
The ship was now sinking fast, but the crowd on deck was quite calm. Our whole trouble was in getting away as quickly as possible, otherwise our boat would be pulled down with the ship. During all this time, the ship's piano was kept playing, and the strains of Near My God to Thee could be plainly heard as the stern of the great ship was raised in the air.
A bit later, the forward funnel guys carried away, and the funnel, weighing perhaps 50 or 60 tons, fell down with a crash on the water. It missed the rock by, and some of us hanging on to it, by inches. There were a good many it didn't miss. Next thing I remember, I was still hanging on to a bit of rope attached to the rock, but some 30 or 40 yards away from the ship. The wash of the falling funnel had evidently picked us up, raft and all, and flung us clear of the ship altogether.
I was surprised to see me all the boats had gone, and there's the last boat here of our party's interesting, and they all thought it'd be mysterious lights. Oh, I knew I was going to drown, I knew that my lasers and numbers, I felt that way. I really was spread myself to death. Being a captain, there are 3 priests on board, and I'd been in the prison, and we got only converted, and I thought, well, God is good, but
Quiet, but quicker and quicker, she seemed just to slide away under the surface and disappear. As she vanished, everyone around me on the upturned boat, as though they could hardly believe.
I was officer in charge of the Christian Command when the Titanic tragedy occurred. And I first knew that she was I think that's where he used to say,
Mysterious passengers? No, somebody amongst the boys. The stewards, they were making quite a joke of it.
And what did you do with that like that?
Some refused to put them on.
Did they say why?
Yes, they said they saw no occasion for putting them on. They did not believe the ship was hurt in any way.
Murdoch said that to you?
Yes, he said, you go away in this boat, old man. Murdoch shook hands with me and said, goodbye, good luck. And I said, lower away.
Did they not want to go?
No, sir. But they were all sitting, squatting down on the deck.
Did you drop them in the boat?
We threw them in.
From your position in the boat, did you face Titanic?
I was facing it at this time. I was rowing. It seemed to be 1, 2, or 3 rumbling sounds, then the lights went out. And the dreadful calls and cries. This went on for some time, gradually getting fainter and fainter.
What did Captain Smith say?
He said, well, boys, you must for women and children and look out for yourselves. He walked on the bridge.
And about that moment of time, the ship took her last plunge.
About 12 or 14 inches of water on this thing, and our feet were in the water all the time.
Is it the case that you could only see 3 people in the water?
Oh, we saw hundreds in the water, but they were not crying for help. They might have been unconscious. They might have been dead. We cannot say to that.
What did you do?
I saw the lights of the car.
Expedition blows foul of the weather. Further attempt at any more success. The Texan Royal Mariner is making his third